frost coats leaves in a brittle lace, melting at the slightest touch. A silence hangs in every place. A twig snap is enough to break the stillness of the day as the light fades away. Now it's time to slumber as strength shoots down from stem to root. Nature knows this as it lumbers, searching for the last of autumn's fruit and wanting for a place to rest, a humble den, a welcome nest. There we'll stay and bide our time, and after long, no doubt, through the hardened winter soil we'll climb spring's freshest, greenest sprouts. So dream a while, there's no rush. Soon again we'll see the shrike and the thrush. Welcome to Games in the Glade, a stress-free gaming news and reviews podcast. I'm your host, Tina Kelly, and I'll guide you through some recent news in the gaming world and give my review of a game I think you'll enjoy. Today I'll be discussing Final Fantasy XIV's latest expansion, Endwalker, Dead Cell's latest update, paid subscription games coming to the Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox, and an itch.io bundle for wildlife conservation. I'll be reading your responses to last week's question about late fall and early winter games, and I'll be asking about your Games of the Year contenders. And finally, I'll finish up with my review of Inscryption. Today's the big day, Final Fantasy XIV fans. Endwalker, the latest expansion of the critically acclaimed MMORPG, goes live on December 7th, delayed a little bit from the initial projected date of November 23rd, but for a good cause, as the devs needed more time to polish the content. As the name suggests, Endwalker marks the first major culmination of the events of Final Fantasy XIV so far, according to the game's producer and director Naoki Yoshida-san. The end has been a long time coming, over a decade in fact, and because the story has sprawled on for such a long time, the crew wanted this expansion to tie together the plot in a way that would make for a satisfying narrative and gameplay experience. Now, with the expansion pack already in early access, eager fans are rushing to their computers to wait in queues that are thousands of players deep in order to play as their Warrior of Light, an issue that Yoshida-san has addressed in a missive from the Final Fantasy XIV website. To compensate for the game time lost to players waiting in line for their turn to play, the dev team is granting 7 days of free game time to all players who own the full version of Final Fantasy XIV and have an active subscription. This also includes players who are currently playing the 30-day free trial included when registering the full version of the game, as well as players with multiple accounts. Yoshida-san has also announced that they may continue to give free time if the congestion continues or worsens, details for which will come later as needed. Lastly, Yoshida-san addressed an error that arose during the credits of the previous arcs, like A Realm Reborn, Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, or Shadowbringers, where the game will log you out if you are inactive for 30 minutes while watching the credits. While they cannot fix the issue yet, they recommend clicking with your mouse, pressing a key on your keyboard, or pressing a button on your controller as you view the credits. So that's a heads up to anyone who's playing the game at this time who may be nearing the end of those arcs. And as a special note, simply moving your mouse will not reset the 30-minute inactivity timer. A mouse click is required. Either way, I hope you all enjoy the game. I'm very excited for you to embark on this journey. I'll include a link to Naoki Yoshida-san's article on the congestion issues and compensation in the description of this episode. In other gaming news, the roguelike Metroidvania Dead Cells is getting an update this month, dubbed by the devs as the Everyone is Here update, harkening back to the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate tagline. The 26th update to Dead Cells includes characters from indie darlings like Blasphemous, Guacamelee, Hollow Knight, and Hyper Light Drifter. The game has been updated frequently since its launch 3 years ago, including paid and free DLC that adds new areas and boss encounters, and this character update will be free for all. If you haven't played Dead Cells in a bit and you're feeling the itch to play again, this seems like a good opportunity to dive back in either on PC, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, or even on your phone. Thanks to Michael Brandon Ingram for his article, Dead Cells Everyone is Here update is live now with a bunch of crossovers from Game Rant. I'll include a link to that article in the description of this episode. Now for some games coming to paid subscriptions this month. First up, for Nintendo, Paper Mario is coming to the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. As for Sony, games available for the PlayStation Plus members this month are Godfall Challenger Edition for the PS4 and 5, it's an action RPG, Lego DC Super Villains for the PS4, and Mortal Shell, a Souls-like that is also available on the PS4. And for Xbox Game Pass members, they'll be getting a huge trove of games, as always, including Final Fantasy XIII 2, Archvale, Rubber Bandits, Stardew Valley, Townscaper, Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator, which you might remember I mentioned in a previous episode, Halo Infinite, Among Us, and Aliens Fireteam Elite. Leaving the service in mid-December will be Guacamelee 2, Yooka-Laylee, the Dark Pictures anthology Man of Medan, and a few others. Thanks to Patrick Young for his article Free PS Plus Games for December Revealed on Game Rant, and thanks to Joe Apsey for his article Xbox Game Pass December 2021 Free Games, What's Coming and Leaving Soon on The Loadout. I'll include links to those articles in the description of this episode. By the way, if you want to play the game Townscaper, which I mentioned is going to be free with Game Pass this month, but you don't have an Xbox or Game Pass subscription, you can play the free demo for the game in your browser. It's a seaside town construction game. I'll leave a link to that demo in the description of this video as well. Now, it's hard to get better than free games, but if you want a comparable value and you want to put your money to a good cause, you can't beat an itch.io bundle for charity. Available this week only and ending on December 10th around 10 a.m., the World Land Trust Bundle, hosted by Plant-Based Gaming, packs in over 60 games, a $450 value, for just $5. Some of the titles include No Longer Home, which is a Game of the Year contender at this year's Game Awards, which I mentioned last episode, The Hex, which is developed by Daniel Mullins Games, the same developer of Inscryption, which I'll be reviewing in a bit, Utazione, Coffee Talk, and many more. 100% of the sales go to the World Land Trust. And Plant-Based Gaming, by the way, is a group that showcases games that focus on nature, conservation, and education. I bought the bundle myself, and if you'd like to do the same, I'll be linking the bundle in this episode's description. Last episode, I asked you folks if you have any games that remind you of the late fall and early winter. These might be games you revisit this time of year as things get colder to make the season brighter. I got some really fascinating responses that I'd like to share with you. First up is Metroid Prime, which Twitter user CowAboutThat says was their fall/daylight savings go-to game, along with an Ocarina of Time playthrough. They said that the colors used in Prime are very warm, and it's a cozy game that they can play through with relative ease. As for Ocarina of Time, they explain that it feels safe and inviting because it's a game from their childhood. I love that cow about that. Games like Metroid Prime and Ocarina of Time may not be winter or fall themed entirely, but they're nostalgic, and games like that take you back to a warmer, more comfortable time. The cozy vibes are perfect for this time of year. Twitter user Urian Gray also responded with Ocarina of Time as a game they revisit this time of year. They said that as a 46-year-old gamer, they got the game on release when it came out in 1994 in France, and it was one of their best Christmases. I forgot that so many great games come out during the holiday season, so that might be a part of why we tie those warm memories to this time of year. It makes sense why folks would want to revisit games from their childhood now, as we bring out the same ornaments and holiday decorations of years past. Why not also surround ourselves with memories of sitting amongst the shredded wrapping paper, plugging in a brand new game, and going on an amazing adventure from the comfort of home? And as for games with a more explicit winter theme, Neolita on Twitter responded that they always play GTA Online during the last week, since they changed the weather to always being snowy, and they play while eating some ice cream and playing some parkour deathmatches. They said that it makes them feel giddy. I love that extra added sensory experience, Neolita, of eating ice cream, so you can really feel the cold. And what better way to spend this time of the year than doing parkour deathmatches with your friends? Finally, Twitter user Bacon Dragon Art answered that they used to play Skyrim regularly each winter, but if they don't have a lot of time, then here and there, they would play some winter-themed games like Little Inferno. Skyrim was one of those big adventures you can wrap yourself up in and let the busy world wash away, so I think Bacon is on point here. And Little Inferno sounded really familiar, so I looked it up, and I remember watching a friend of mine, Skint Teen, on Twitch, play that game. Now, Jade is a lovely person, don't let the spooky name fool you, and I enjoyed watching her set things on fire in the fireplace in Little Inferno. It's a really quirky game. Give it a look if you want something fun and lighthearted with a bit of a Tim Burton vibe this time of year. And as for me, I lean towards nostalgic games this time of year. I used to replay Earthbound and Super Mario RPG before I started streaming, because those games reminded me of cozy times playing on the SNES with my brother when we were kids. Nowadays, I don't play many games outside of my stream, but seeing those games warms my heart and takes me back. Thank you all so much for responding to the last episode's prompt. It was lovely hearing the things that make this season warm for you all. I'm changing up the structure of this episode to accommodate people who may not want to listen to my review of Inscryption due to spoilers. So, let's now get into the question of the episode. I know this one is tough, but I would love to know, what are your games of the year? What games stood out to you and why? If you want to pick a top 3 or divide your picks into categories, that's great too. Maybe you could pick an indie game of the year, a AAA game of the year, and best game that you played this year, despite the fact that it wasn't made this year. As a streamer, I play a lot of games from years past that stand out, so I like recognizing those too. So, what games were the best this year in your opinion? If you'd like to respond, you have a few options. You could respond to the tweet that I'm going to put out, or you can tweet directly at Games in the Glade on Twitter using the GITG asks hashtag. Or if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can just leave a comment in the video below. Your responses might help me with deciding what my games of the year are, since it's so hard to pick. For this episode's review, I'd like to talk to you about Inscryption, a game by Daniel Mullins Games, developer of the suspense puzzle game Pony Island and the genre-bending game The Hex. Released on October 19th of this year, Inscryption's dark aesthetic made for the perfect spooky Halloween time game, but it transcends the usual jump scare fare of the holiday to offer a narrative that I adored experiencing, even though at times I could only watch it from the cracks of my fingers as I cowered in fear. Inscryption is a game that gripped me so hard I thought about it long after I would close out of the game, mulling over the mysteries as much as I thought about previous misplays and future plans. Inscryption is a deck builder with compounding mechanics. Just as you think you're getting a hold of the game, it introduces something new to challenge you. First, you learn of blood sacrifices. All cards have a cost, and sometimes that cost is the blood of another living card. Kill a squirrel, and you can place a frog. Kill another squirrel and that frog, and you can place a more dangerous wolf. Some cards can be sacrificed for more blood than it costs to play them, and other cards can be sacrificed infinitely without vanishing from your board. Then you learn about bones. Any card that dies yields a bone, whether you sacrifice it or it was killed by your opponent. Got that? Great! Now just master all the sigils that grant benefits to your cards. Some cards leap in the way of damage, while others hound down the last card your opponent played. Some cards fly over the opposition to strike your opponent's HP directly, while others hide in the water when their turn is over. Just learning all that you can do is half the game. And did I mention that your opponent is trying to kill you? Not beat you at cards. He will kill you if you lose. That's it. Your deck is gone and you're dead. Your fancy cards, gone. All but a handful of oddly persistent creatures and a stack of squirrel sacrifices. But the knowledge remains. You must get better. You must escape this deadly game. Now, the reason why everyone is telling you to play Inscryption without telling you what the game is about is that telling you anything more about the game would be spoiling it for you. Those people are very right. But I'm no coward, and I've given you every warning so far, so the spoilers are coming. Will it ruin the game for you? Probably not. Because the game is so strong, so challenging, and so riddled with grim vibes that If you play Inscryption, you'll be gripped to play it yourself from start to finish, and start to finish, and then finish, and finish, and finish again. The mechanics of Inscryption, as constant as they are ever-changing, are still less than half the game. Your environment is also a factor as you play cards. Upon your first defeat, you'll be commanded to stand. You're given rein to explore the Leshy's cabin, a dark, comfortless home filled with odd wall hangings, a safe, a game contraption, some candles, and other strange odds and ends. As inscrutable as these objects are, they're tools for you to get ahead. Nearly everything around you, hostile though it may seem, is there to help you. The safe has cards and tools. The skull by the Leshy has a few extra teeth in it for you to pocket and spend later on pelts from his masked character, the Trapper. And the game contraption beside him has 4 mock-up boards for you to run by plays that, when solved correctly, will net you some extraordinary cards. Now you might be thinking, well, dang it, Tina, now I know there's stuff in them. And to that I would say, good luck using any of that information or those resources. Maybe you'll do what I did. Foolishly pounce upon all the resources the second they unlock, eager to solve puzzles for rewards, and feeling like a kid in a candy store. You'll get so many cards. Your deck will be stacked. And then you'll die, bitterly ignorant as to how any of those cards worked in battle. And the cards will die with you, without you having figured out what half of their sigils meant. And then when you open your eyes again, the safe will be empty, and the game contraption too. And it'll just be you, your stoat and your stink bug, and a handful of squirrels against the Leshy once more. You've always got your strangely talkative cards with you, like the stoat, even after you let them die or you kill them off. That familiarity is a small comfort in Inscryption. The rest of the game works hard to deprive you of that comfort, not just in the changing mechanics, but in the music as well. The soundtrack for Inscryption sets the tone for the grim environment. The haunted cabin, for instance, has a long, plucked refrain that fills a room with an ancient unease, offering only as much comfort as a blanket of moonlight does in the cold woods. Boss themes combine sound effects and menacing themes to summon up an audio boss arena around you. The prospector's pickaxe rings out around you in his boss theme, accompanied by a funereal note or two from an old piano. It's the audio equivalent of being trapped in a mine, and your only companion is a madman in the darkness. And then there's the angler. The wet slap of fish guts is the beat of the angler's boss theme, as a Jaws-like bass thrums below the surface. And the Leshy's theme itself is ethereal, filled with the sound of the howling wind, a distorted flute, and pensive rhythmic drums. There's as much mysticism to it as there is logic, much like the strange and powerful Leshy. It's a bit cliche to say, but Jonah Senzel's music makes Inscryption. It's the magic that animates the game, that makes the threat feel real, and that makes Inscryption's disparate parts feel so very different. The music, much like the game, is ever evolving. When the game shifts in the second third, the music is there to immerse you in a different world. The world of the game within the game. You thought you won. You thought you escaped. You're jubilant. And then everything changes. Suddenly you're playing a different game, with some of the blood of the same game you played in the Leshy's cabin still flecked through it, but alien in every other way. You must understand this new world, its new ways. Your life depends on it. In this new world, you'll find old friends. Your Stoat and Stinkbug cards have taken on a new form, for example. Even old enemies like the Angler make the transition to this new game feel familiar, but the setting is so utterly different that you're kept off kilter. See, now you're playing the real Inscryption, the actual game based on collectible cards. And you're a bit let down. You knew how to play cards before, but everything is different, including the stakes. Now you can lose and try again without dying. It's just a game after all, with pixel art and loot packs and NPCs. A lot of people stop there, feeling the disappointment of losing such a charismatic boss like the Leshy. Now your opponents are flat, their lines recycled. But hidden in those lines is something unsettling, disguised as cute Easter eggs. You fight someone named Casey Hobbs, just a poor old pile of bones who happens to share a name with a card you found in the Leshy's cabin. A soul named Casey trapped by his soul-stealing karma that turns people into playing cards. Casey Hobbs also happens to be a developer of this pixel game, Inscryption. A nice touch, but not for Casey, and not for you or anyone else who happens to get lost in Inscryption. See, now that you're playing, you can't quit. The game has you. From start to finish with the Leshy, you're playing his game. From start to finish in Inscryption, the pixel art world of magical scribes who capture the world in their chosen medium, be it photography with the scribe of beasts, the scribe of magic's paintings, the scribe of the dead's epitaphs, or the scribe of technology's photocopies, you're playing their game with their mechanics. You're just a rat in a maze, marching towards a logical conclusion, bringing to fruition something dark and terrible as you stand victorious over the bosses you toppled along the way. Just like the scribe of magic's failed student dances in the horrific emptiness of space, a plaything of his master now just a ballerina on your screen, so too do you dance like a puppet on a string to the real master pulling the strings, just beyond your understanding. And then the game changes again. Now you're really trapped. Literally handcuffed to the table. You've really boned it now. See, the game doesn't want you to stop, and it doesn't care anymore about the trappings of atmosphere that the Leshy once supplied you with. You're an experiment in a lab. The music is more sparse, the tracks are recycled and distorted versions of each other. What matters now is mechanics and skill. You need to win now. The game will even help you get there. Did you die? Well, just pick up your loot. Keep your cards. Keep getting better. Keep getting farther. And get some help from your friends. No, not the Stoat and the Stinkbug. Your real friends. The game knows who they are, who you are, who you love and what's important to you. It knows more than you, and it holds that ransom, offers that as a reward. A little knowledge, a little familiarity, a little nibble of cheese for the rat as it scrambles to the end. The rat will win, and the rat will die, and something greater will be born. What is that exactly? If you press further, you'll learn. But at what cost? Inscryption, for what it does, is a Game of the Year contender. I hope it inspires people to make games like it. Not more deck builders, but more games that use a game genre as a base to subvert expectations. Inscryption dances to the tune of a card game, with the wild motions of an animal lunging at you in a way that doesn't feel entirely playful or safe. Because the mechanics of deck building isn't even half the game. The music, the mystery, the darkness, and the depth can't be itemized for an understanding of an Inscryption. Inscryption is so much more than the sum of its parts, a sentiment that rings out throughout the game, but struck me hard during the credits. There, midway through, A list of the Creative Commons license assets and third-party assets used in the game scrolls by for over 6 minutes, more than half of the credits' length. So many of the items that are critical to solving puzzles, so many of the textures that meshed beautifully to make the Leshy's dark cabin, so many of the effects that made the final third of the game so oppressively cold. They were made by other people and repurposed for the game. And it's with wonder and adoration that I read each and every one of these entries, realizing the game developers had transformed them with a few lighting tricks, sure, but mostly with the magic of storytelling. That the most unique and challenging game of this year could use and credit so many free and borrowed assets is not only a testament to the skill of the developers, but also a boon to other game devs. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. You need only to make the world around that wheel change it. Now, that's like Carl Sagan saying that to make an apple pie, you need to first create the universe. True, but daunting. But where there is a drive to make something new, there is a way to use the old to tell a story in a way that no one's told it before. If you've listened so far, you may think that I've played the game for you, and now there's no need to play Inscryption. You know it now. You understand it. But no. I've held back so much of what drives Inscryption forward, both in its plot and its environment, which you should really lay your eyes and ears on. But more than that, I feel like it's a game you need to experience because you'll see something no one else has, and you'll get the joy of a soaring victory or a clever puzzle, and that joy can only come from your effort alone. You can do it. Anybody can play and beat Inscryption. Just pick up your cards and try again. That's all I have for you today. There will be more news and reviews every other week, so keep an eye out for updates in your favorite podcatcher or on YouTube, and follow the show's Twitter account at Games in the Glade for more. This podcast is supported by Friends of the Forest on Patreon, a link for which I'll leave in the description. Thanks to Puddles of Infinity for the use of their song Porches and Universes, and thanks to Titsay for the beautiful album art. And even though our time together is coming to an end, you can always find your way back here, my world-worn weary friend. There's a spot here in the clearing, in the quietude and shade, for you to relax a while and listen to Games in the Glade.